What's up, y'all? Welcome to the channel. This is Jason here, and in this video we're doing a full deep dive into SwiftUI. We're going to be building a full chat room. We're using Firebase as our backend. We're going to be using sign-in with Google, sign-in with Apple. So we have the whole user flow going in. We're going to be able to sign into our app with Apple or Google. You sign in, boom, you're in the chat room. You get to chat with all your friends, your family, your mama, your uncle, everybody. And you can sign in, sign out, send a message. So we're using Firestore for the database here. We're listening for updates, so if somebody else sends a message to the chat room, it'll automatically be shown here and it'll scroll to the bottom. And we do the sign out flow. We get back here. And we also have the session persistence. So if I sign in and then close the app, come back a year later, and the session is still active, it'll still be there. So I hope you guys enjoy. Leave any comments you have down below. Check me out on Twitter, Jason Dubon @YT. All right, y'all, enjoy. All right, let's do this. Let's build out this chat app. So we're gonna create a new Xcode project. Go to app, chat room. We'll call this SwiftUI. SwiftUI. Since it's a SwiftUI version, we're gonna hit next, create. Let's make Xcode bigger. And my camera is a little too big. Let me shrink that. All right. You minimize this, scroll here. Let's create, let's create two new files. So we're gonna create one called ChatView, and then this is gonna be where we're gonna have our chat room. And let's create another one called MessageView, which will be our actual message that each user sends. MessageView, and in here, let's create a struct really quickly called message. And let's make it conform to decodable, because later on we're going to use it to decode our messages from Firebase. So for now, what's in a message? So we'll say the name or the text. And then actually we're also going to have the UID of the user. That'll be a string. Let's be specific and say user UID. And if anybody watched the other course, we also had a photo URL, which was a type string. This was the user's profile picture, and we also had a created app, which is the time or date that this was sent. Okay. And in our message view, we want to pass in a struct, and in our message view, we want to pass in in our message view, we're going to want to pass in a message. So let's create a var message, so type message, fix, and let's create a fake message. 1, 2, 3. For me, these can be blank. We'll just set this to right now. All right, so let's work on this view, and I'm gonna shrink myself again because I'm in the way. All right, so in our message view, what do we want first? So first, let's create an H stack, and in this H stack, we need our message bubble and the profile picture. But for now, let's create a property here called isCurrent. Okay, is from current user, and this will be a boolean. Set it equal to false. All right, first let's do the message if it's not from the user. So let's do a text, and we'll say message dot text. If we get here, the alignment should be top. Let's resume our. All right, so we have our text, and let's add an image. Let's do system image for now. Let's just do person. And okay, now that we're here, let's put our text into an H stack. Wrap the text in here. Now we can work on getting the background color. Let's see how this looks. Gray. Let's add a frame to this. In this frame, let's do max width. Let's make it like 350. See how that looks. Oh, 300. Too much. 260. All right. Let's add some padding to the text. That looks good. And for our frame, we can add an alignment dot leading. There we go. And now let's see if we have a corner radius. Let's see if we can add a corner radius of 20. There we go. All right, so now for this image, let's add a frame, and we'll do max height of 32, and alignment is top. Let's see what happens if we change this size. Let's do 24. Can I add some, and let's add some padding. on the bottom, what if I do 4? Nope. Oh, -4. Let's do 10. Max height, let's do 32. And let's make this 16. That looks pretty good. Now let's add some more padding to the left or the right. Trailing. Let's add some padding of 4. That looks good. And then for our H stack in general, we can add a frame max width. Let's do 360, and alignment is leading, and that is pretty cool. And let's test something. See, we're gonna copy this. If is from current user, else we'll copy this part, paste it in here, and I'm gonna paste some stuff in here. But for this one, let's this changes to, let's see. So if it is a current user, we have to reverse the order here. And if we set our preview, if we set this equal to true, actually, haha, this looks nice. And then the background color, let's do a blue. And instead of leading, we do trailing. And instead of leading here, we do trailing. And actually, wait, let's do leading. There we go. Can we do top leading? If we change this to false, let's see. Oh, and it looks like for this message, let's change the leading. Let's add some leading padding here. All right. Now, how do we want to go about this? One case I thought about was potentially using a ternary operator, because the only differences are like the background and like the alignment. The alignment here, the trailing, the leading. But the order matters in our case. Can't really use a ternary operator since the order matters, because right here we have the text first, then we have the image, and then in the other one we have the image, and then we have the text. And I don't want to pass in this boolean every time, so we're gonna go back to our message struct, and let's create a function called is from current user. And what this function is gonna return a boolean. In this function down the line, we're gonna add some functionality once we bring in the user authentication to the application, and we actually have a user UID for the current logged in user. For now, let's return true. You can get rid of this. And then we'll do a message dot is from current user. And if we change this to false, so this is looking good. If you want to clean this up even more, we could extract these into two different files. One for this H stack and one for this H stack here. All right, so that's it for messages for now. Let's clean this up a little bit by adding a new group called models. And we'll create a file for this message model. New file, call this message. All right, and let's create a new group, call this views. All right, so in our chat view, we're gonna need a view model. So let's create a class called chat view model. We'll extrapolate this out in a second, or remove this into its own file in a second. So this chat view model, we'll make this a @state object. We'll call it chat view model. This will be the model that's being used by our chat to get the messages and listen for updates. Oh, forgot the var. To conform to this, we're gonna get an error, right? Yep. We need to conform to observable object. There we go. And in here, let's create a published var, call this messages, and this will be an array of messages. All right, so let's go over some few things. So why did I use published? So this @publish wrapper is letting the class or the view model know that, oh, this messages array can change, and if it does change, we want to publish those changes to the view model. And then this observable object allows our view to listen to changes in our chat view model. And now what do we want to do? So we'll use a for each, and we'll pass in our chat view model.messages. And this should be message, and we'll want to call MessageView message. And I believe we'll get some errors because we need to conform to identifiable. So we go back to our models. Let's conform to identifiable. Whoa. And we just have to do let ID equal UUID. Command B. This succeeded. Let's see if I don't think we have any data. So let's create some mock data. Let's call this. Let's make this a static let mock data. I'll be right back. All right, so I just grabbed some data. This was the data that we used in our, and this actually has to be messages, so I can't even use my data. So let's see what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut this, put it in here. This will do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Created that date, photo URL, doesn't matter. And let's copy this a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And cut this, put it in here. We have an extra parenthesis. So we actually have to make this a publish. And that means this has to be a var, so we can use it in our, and then we have to wrap this for each in a VStack. Let's add some spacing as well. Just a tad bit. I think 4 should be good. And now we need to change this to mock data. Boom! And if we wanted to, let's add more spacing. Bam! And we can go to our messages and change this to false. And our chat view is there. Haha. Not bad. So I want to go to the message view. And can I bring in UI color here? Let's see. Let's bring in a UI color light gray, because the other gray is a little too intense. That's better. And if we're doing light gray, let's do, I prefer the system blue. So let's do system blue. And we won't see that now because our data is not updating. We haven't made our network card reflect it. And that looks about the same. All right, so we have this. And now let's create another VStack. Actually, let's embed this. Embed in a scroll view. That way people can scroll this. And then I want to embed this scroll view in a vertical stack. And after this scroll view, let's create a text field. Text field with a title and a text and axis. We're using axis because axis is going to allow us multi-line a text field. Because you know some people might have a lot of things to say off. Some people might have a lot of things to get off their chest. So if you have a multi-line, it looks a lot nicer. Otherwise, if it'll just be one long line, and that's not nice. It doesn't look good. So this will be hello there, and we need to create a state var, which will be of should we call this text or should we be specific? Let's see, text. We'll call it just call it text, and we'll bind it to this, and we'll set the axis equal to vertical. And let's see a background color here. Let's see if we, yeah. Oh, there it is. It wasn't refreshing, so I couldn't tell. Yep, it's right there. Let's add some padding. Padding to the bottom. And now if we have multi-line, yep. And what happens if I scroll? So let's copy these and have a lot of messages. Let's see what happens to our app. There we go, yep. That's good. That's good, right? That means it's working. And now we need to add some padding though to the... Wait, to be honest, let's just add padding all over. See how this looks. Ah, that looks good. That looks good. Can I add a background color? I want a background color. I'm still getting used to these colors in SwiftUI. I don't even know how this will look. That isn't. Wait. Let's see. I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna do a UI color of system gray. I believe it's 5. Do I like that? 4. Ooh, 6. Let's do. What do you guys think? I'm gonna go with 6, but you guys can do as you wish. All right, and now we need a send button because this doesn't. We don't have a send button. So let's put this in a H stack, and at the end of this H stack, let's create a button, action and a label. The label will be a text that says send. Let's refresh, and let's print send. Refresh our view. Oh yeah, it's right here. I want to add some padding to this button though. Button getting no respect. Oh, I just realized you guys couldn't see the. You know what? I'm just gonna move myself here, or right here actually. And that way, boom. It might be an adjustment, but we're gonna go through it. All right. So now we have our text. We can remove this padding, and then we'll add a padding here. And we can add a background color. I don't know what to go with. Let's go with cayenne. And let's add a corner radius of 20. And let's do 30. No, 50. I want to add, I want to add some more padding, specifically to the left, or trailing. That looks pretty good. The only ugly thing is the background. So we'll have to, wait, can I remove this and apply the background to the whole H stack? Yes. Yes, I can. Haha. Not bad. So let's remove this though. And what do we need to do? We need to change the foreground color. So foreground color, that'll change the color of the text. We'll do dot white. And let's play around with this color. Did anybody say pink? Pink is, I don't know. Red is too much. What is indigo? Indigo. Indigo? Indigo. You guys can have fun with this. I'm not sure which one I like. Mint? Mint looks interesting. We're gonna do mint. Add some color. Add some life. Now, what do we need? So, this is good. So now we need our send action. And we'll want to handle that in our view model. So let's create a function in here called send message. And now we can call chat view model dot send message. But what do we mean? We need to send the message, right? We can't just call it. We got to send the message, and there should be a string, and we will call the string, we'll call text. So whatever our text value is, and let's print it. Wait, what? Print text. So I started typing. Let's see. I believe it won't work here on our preview, right? We got to run the simulator. All right, and we have to set it. We got to go back to our chat room Swift app file and change this to chat view, and then we run our simulator. And here it is. Moment of truth. What? All right, here we go. We got our scroll view. We might want to get rid of this the scroll bar, right? Because that's looking ugly. And let's see, Command K. Hi there. Hit send. Haha. And it looks like it works. I just spammed it. All right, it works. But now it worked, but it didn't clear the text field, so we need to do that. So we set text equal to empty, and that should clear the text field. Testing, baby. Boom. Hey, this is working. All right, so to get rid of that ugly scroll bar, we go to our scroll view and do shows indicator, set this equal to false. And now it's not showing. And looks like we're good to go for here, for this. Like, so our chat view is set, and let's move it to our views file. Let's move this in here. Give it a second, it's re-indexing. Oh, I gotta pause this. Sometimes when you move files into folders in SwiftUI, the preview kind of stops working because it has to like re-index the files. So if you do that, just like try to play around, go to different files, come back to it, hit Command B, clean the build folder, or just restart Xcode. One of those should solve the issue. But what do we want to do now? We want to implement this in our content view. Well, first, let's move this view model. Let's Command K or Command X. Let's create a new group here called this chat view. And let's create a new file. This will be chat view model. And we hit Command V. Now we're gonna move this in here. This will probably break. Yep. Let's hit Command B. Succeeded, and now let's refresh this. I think if you go to a different one and come back, it should work. There we go. All right, so let's put this in our content view. So we go to our content view, and let's put a chat view. Okay. Now let's embed our chat view though in I believe it's a navigation stack. Navigation stack. Chat view, and we'll do a navigation title. Chat room. See if that loads up. All right, and to actually get this to show, we need to embed our chat. To get our navigation title to show, we need to embed this in a Z stack. and put the navigation title on the Z stack. And navigation display mode, we'll do inline. We don't want a large. This looks nice. Now under this navigation item stuff, let's go to toolbar. You don't even put in toolbar, just go to content. And in this one, we want to add a toolbar item. Let's do placement and content. Placement is trailing, navigation bar trailing. So in our toolbar, let's do a text, sign out. There we go. And let's do a red tint on it. So foreground color dot red. It can sign out now. And this needs to be a button actually. Because we need to take into account when somebody taps onto it. So let's do button. So in here, then we do the text, sign out. Let's print sign out. Looks good. Let's just add a little bit of red or color. No, background. Sorry. So there we go. Oh no, it's foreground. It's foreground. Let's run this. So instead of chat view, we'll do content view. Run this bad boy. Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't notice I was coding in the preview. Why didn't anybody tell me? I thought it was just updating. That's hilarious. SwiftUI, man. I'm used to working in UI kit, so don't judge me. Don't judge me. But now if we run this, let's see what happens. It loads. Did we see sign out? Yeah. And I think this should still say yep. We need to add a block. I just found a bug. So in our chat view, let's only do this if text is greater than or equal to count. Let's only do this if text.count is greater than 2. And that gets rid of that bug where we're just sending the blanks. So back to our content view. It's looking good. So now let's add our sign-in screen. And we can do that here on this navigation stack. We can, we'll call dot full screen cover. Full screen cover will cover the whole screen. The other option is to use, I think it's a sheet, but that won't cover the full screen. So we're gonna do full screen cover is presented. All right, so we need to create a state var here for this binding property. And this, we'll call this, let's see. So if we're gonna present this if there isn't anybody signed in. So we'll just say show sign in. That's what we'll call it. And this will be a Boolean. We'll set it equal to false for now. And we'll do show sign in. And if we show sign in, we're gonna wanna call our view. So we need to create that. But for now, let's use a message view or something. No, we don't wanna. Let's show the chat view. That's not really gonna do anything. But I think if we do, let's do a text 1, 2, 3. And if we set this equal to true, yeah, all right, it shows it. It shows the full screen. So let's go back to our views and we need to create a new folder or new file. Call this sign in view. Yeah, it's a SwiftUI. Sorry, I had to make sure. Sign in view. What do we want to use? So for our application, we're going to use sign in with Google and sign in with Apple. So I want to, let's create a VStack. In our VStack, so I'm going to actually work with an image. I just brought in an image here. It's like some tree. And it'll be a good practice because working with images in SwiftUI is a little different than coming from UIKit. This was named Nature1. Haha, it shows resizable. And then let's add a frame. No. Frame, let's add a max height. Max height. Let's do max height and max width. Frame max width first. So max width is gonna be like 400. Max height, let's do like 500. And alignment dot top. And so let's do 400, 400. Scale to fill. We can clip it. Now let's add 2 buttons. Action and label. We should put these in our, actually, let's put this button. So let's embed these in a VStack. Okay, and then this button will print. We'll do Apple and then let's print Google. Text, sign in with Google. And let's do that here. Sign in with Apple. Let's add some padding. Let's add the foreground color of dots. Let's just keep it black. For our sign-in screen, we're gonna keep it one color. Actually, we could just go with primary. And then we can add an overlay. This will be a rounded rectangle. Corner radius, we'll do like 20. And so on this rounded rectangle, we can call stroke just by itself. And this gives you a line width of 1. Then we can change the foreground color to black or primary. How does this look in dark mode actually? Ah, there we go. Not bad. I think Apple guidelines doesn't allow you to have that black button with, actually maybe they do. Don't quote me. All right, so that's our sign in with Apple button. Should we make this frame bigger? Let's add a width. Let's do it for like 300. Let's see how that looks. Actually, I think we need to add it to the rounded rectangle. Yeah, there we go. So 300, this looks pretty good. Let's add spacing here of like 100. Maybe a little less. Let's do 60. Yeah. And now we can copy all this. Bring it down here and just change this to Google. We'll add some spacing in our VStack. Spacing of 10. Delete this. Content. Oh. All right. This looks good. We tap on this and it looks like it's working. Let's add some more spacing. Let's do like 20. Give us some room to breathe. All right. Let's see if we can implement this in our content view. So let's do, what do we call this? Sign-in view? Sign-in view. I want to pin this image to the top. So let's go to, so I want this image to be pinned to the top of the screen. One way to do that is to add a spacer here. And if we also do edges, ignore, top. All right. So I was playing around with the image. I made the max width to 400, the max height of 450. We add a spacer. That pushes this all the way down. So let's add a spacer here. That pushes this back up. Wait, let's get rid of this animation. I want to see something. So the sign-in view. What happens if we get rid of this spacer? We bring it back. All right. It looks good. All right, it's looking good. And now go to content view. We get this sign-in screen. All right, for the image, we want to call scale to fill first. And that gives us this really nice, because if you call it before or after the frame, it looks like that. But if you call it right here, bam, that looks a lot nicer. That looks a lot nicer. Before we move on, I added an image here in the assets. And I want to go to our chat view, in our message view. And here I'm going to change the name of my file, which is JSON, the name of the picture. I want to see how it looks formatted with we can remove name. Need a call resizable and scale to aspect fill. Let's do a max width as well of 32. Corner radius of 16. A little bit more padding. And let's just copy this. Well, copy this because the padding is different, right? Yeah. No, the padding's the same. Looks like max width. Oh, everything's the same for our images. So we can copy that and then paste that here. So it'll look the same for our, if the other user sends it, we can look right here. Yep. All right. Now in our content view, let's go get set up with Firebase so that we can set up our user authentication and the messages. So Firebase.google, go to your console. Let's add a new project. This is we'll call this chat room SwiftUI. You don't need to enable analytics unless you want to. It's ready, you hit continue. We're doing iOS. To get the bundle identifier, we go here to this to the targets. We just grab it from, or you go to sign-in capabilities and then you grab it from here. Make sure you got all of it. You hit register app. Then you want to download your plist. When this is downloaded, you want to drag it in here. Make sure you have copy items if needed. And if you have a copy, then you want to delete that and then hit enter. Now we need to add Firebase to our project. So we go to add packages, right here, file, add packages. Copy the URL in there. And I'm gonna do 10 because I used 9 a while ago and I was getting errors. So I'm just gonna do 10 and above. Yeah. All right, what libraries do we need to bring in? We want auth. We also want database. Bring in database Swift, by the way. Actually, we're not database, Firestore. And Firestore Swift. And then what else do we want? Firebase storage. Yeah, for our profile pictures, we may use that. So this loads up and it's in our project. Now hit Command B and this might take a second to reindex. We'll go back to Firebase. We hit next and we have to set up some files. So we're using SwiftUI, so we have to create this or add this to our app file here. And we want to copy this, paste that in here. And you want to copy this, paste that. I believe we can just import Firebase. But let's do Firebase core. It's always better to import less than more. All right, and then we hit next and we're all set. So we go back to our project. Let me stop running. Content view, and this isn't gonna really do anything. Now let's create a folder, let's create a group called managers. And here we'll have our database manager. Make this a Swift file, database manager. What else do we want? We also want a auth manager. Let's handle our authentication first. We go to Firebase authentication. That word is sometimes tricky to say. Authentication. And sign-in method, well, let's enable Google chat room, baby. And then I'll just select my email as a support. Give this a second, and let's add Apple since we're gonna be adding support for that as well. Templates, usage. All right, that sets up our auth, but we have to we need to go over the documentation to figure out what we need to do. So we go to Firebase. Authentication. I think you do Apple platforms. Yeah, getting started Firebase auth on Apple platforms. Let's go to Google. So we have our we have the Firebase SDK. Now we need to add Google sign-in. So we go to we go back to add packages. Copy this in. Add this package. Enable sign-in for your project. So import required headers. Let's go back here. Bring in both. I believe this one is for SwiftUI and it gives you like a nicer looking button. But we're not even going to use the Google buttons because they're all right, but it's not going to match. Now what do we need to do? We go back to Firebase, implement Google sign-in. So it looks like we need the reverse client ID. And you can find that in your plist from Google, the Google plist, reverse client ID, copy that, go to your targets. Then you go to info, then you go to URL types, hit the plus. Copy this in the URL schemes, and that's all we need to do. And did finish launching. We already did this. We need to add this file though. So we go back here and let's add it right there. We fix the formatting. And now this is how you do the signing with Google Flow. A little tricky, if you ask me. Implement pass presenting view controller for client. All right, let's do that. Oh, we got to import. I believe it's GID. Google sign-in. So now we need this, this is to handle our signing in. This is to handle the sign-in with Google. We're gonna add that. Set that in the auth manager. Class auth manager. We're gonna make this a singleton. Auth manager. Let's create a function. For now, I'll call it sign in with Google. And let's see what we need to add here. So create a Firebase authentication credential. So let's copy this. Put that in here, and if you highlight this and do Command I believe it fixes the formatting. And if you want to get rid of this, there's two ways to go about this. You can just, the easy way but not the right way if you're gonna implement this like in an actual environment, is you can just copy your client ID. You go back to the auth manager, just put it here. The other option is to put it in here in your info, but we'll just put it in the auth manager for now. But you really shouldn't do this in your production, anything that's going in production. And we need to import sign in with Google. Go sign in. Let's do Google sign in Swift. Let's see, GID sign in, shared instance. Let's import both actually. So if you see in this sign in with presenting function, it's requiring a view controller. So we have to grab the view controller, but we're working with SwiftUI, right? So we have views, so SwiftUI, how to get top view controller. Let's go here. Oh my God, that's Objective-C. if you're only working in SwiftUI, that looks crazy, right? Let's go to this one. Which one should we use? Let's grab this function and let's see. Command B, and we would actually have to call this. But if to call it, yeah, you do a iflet or a guardlet. Let's do guardlet top VC. I mean, you might as well copy this part over too. We'll copy it in this iflet. I like to use guardlets. Let's change this iflet to a guardlet. So guardlet top VC equals that. Else we return. All right. And we'll pass top VC into this. Return, else return. Okay, what else do we want to do? Down here, let's create a reference to our auth. Let auth equal auth. And we have to import Firebase auth. Firebase auth. Let auth equal auth. Auth dot sign in with credential. And let's do a completion with a result and an error. We'll pass in this credential. Command B. This is failing. Oh, it's because of this. But what should we do? Let's add a completion here. Completion. Add escaping. Let's just do a Boolean for now. So if it's a success, we'll do true. Actually, let's use a result type. We'll pass void if it's a success, and let's create an enum. Call this auth error. Case error with Google sign in. Actually, we should call this Google sign in error. Make sure you conform to error, otherwise it won't work. And let's see, to grab top VC, put the completion, and you pass the failure. And this case, we can move this guardlet into this line here. Error with, or wait, what should we call this? This is we'll do a sign-in presentation error for this one. So in here, we'll do a completion, sign-in presentation error. And one last guardlet, result equal result, else error equal nil. The completion for this, so I think we have to create this. We'll do an auth sign-in error. Failure. Now we have a result. And if we get here, completion is true or success. Pass and void is just two empty curly braces or parentheses, sorry. Command B. What did I forget? I forgot to return. I think there's a formatting issue, let's see. Or missing a parentheses. Command B. Oh, there's an extra parentheses here, but yeah. Command B, and we have a success. And when we have a success, we should pass a struct. Call this user. And what should we, what is in the user? It's like a username. Or actually, I think there's just their name. String. Email. String. And a photo URL. Make this one optional. Because when you add the sign in with Apple, they don't provide a photo URL. So we'll make this optional. Any other information we need? Oh, the UID of the user. And Firebase has its own version of user. So let's change this to chat room user actually, because Firebase auth has a different, like has a struct or a model called user. So just to avoid any confusion, let's create the user here, chat room. We'll call this user equals chat room user. From the result.user has a UID. Result.user.name, display name. .user email. Oh, this is optional. And a photo URL. Photo URL. Let's change the email to optional. Command B. Is the display name optional? All right. We'll just name this person. Though everyone will have a name unknown, although we're not displaying the name, so it'll be all right. And this is a photo URL, so let's do absolute string. And we'll pass in the user. Command B. All right. Now we can try to call this bad boy. In here we will say, so what do we call this? We need to go to our sign-in view, Google auth manager dot share dot sign in with Google result. Switch on the result. So if success, and then if there's a failure. So if there's a failure, we can just print out the error, localized description. If there's a success, this is user. Oh, let's do break for now. So in our sign-in view, when we're showing the logins or the login screen, it'll be shown like this, and it's dictated by this boolean here, show sign in, and we need to communicate from the sign in view to the content view if the user signed in or not. And we can do that by adding a initializer here, call this show sign in. So type boolean, and we can make this binding, and now it's going to be required here. And for this you can do a constant dot true, and when we successfully sign in, we'll do show sign in equal to false. Then back in our content view, we can pass the show sign in. Here we use a $sign for binding. All right, so our sign in view is pretty much set. Well, at least for Google, our sign in with Google is pretty much set. We can remove, we'll just discard the result for now, and let's try to run this on the simulator. Get this, and we'll say sign in, continue, sign in with my Google account. Haha, it's working. And now we still have the mock data though. One thing we need to do is we need to handle our sign out. So if we go to our chat view, this is where it looks, no, actually I think we need to go to our content view to handle the sign out. Yeah, we need to handle it in here. So when they tap sign out, we want to call the auth manager. Let's create a function called sign out. So func sign out, and you just call auth.currentUser. No, actually wait. You just call auth.sign out, and it throws. So let's say throw. Try that. Now we go back to chat view. No, content view. Sorry. And then we need to do catch block. So do catch. We'll say auth manager dot share dot sign out. Try, and what else? We'll just say error signing out for now. So one thing we need to take into account is how are we gonna know when to show the sign in? And there's quite a few ways we can go about that, but the best way I found was on appear. So every time this will appear, we want to check if there's a user session that's active, and we can do that in our auth manager. We can create a function called get current user, and this function can return a chat room user optional. And what we do is we use auth to get our auth user from Google. So auth current user, and we can wrap this in a guardlet. Else, oh, spelled guard wrong. We return nil if we don't have a current user. Else we can return a chat room user with all this info. So we do auth user.uid, auth user.display name. You want to call auth user dot this one email, and auth user.photo URL. Command B. I think yeah, this one fails, so we'll say unknown for now. Command B. Oh, and this is a URL, so we do absolute string on it, and that should work. Yeah, we succeed. So we go back to our content view, and in here, every time this appears, we can check if, so this will appear if we successfully sign out, right? So actually let's do show sign in equal to true. And if you first, like if, and when you first launch the app, it may or may not appear depending if there's a session that's active. So we will call, actually something we can do is we can say show sign in user and have this equal our auth manager dot shared dot get current user. So this will return us a chat room user that's optional. So it will be nil or it won't be nil. And we will want to show the sign in if it's nil. So if this equals nil, then we do want to show the sign in. And that'll happen because this conditional statement will be true. So the sign in the sign in will be shown. The sign in will be shown. the sign in will be shown. The S's. And let's see. Let's try to run this. So I'm going to run the app. All right, so our app loads up. We're on the sign in screen. I'm gonna sign in, continue. All right, I'm in the chat room, and now let's stop the simulator and the app already closed. We open it and then it shows up, but then it goes away, which admittedly is not the best UI, right? Like you show the sign in and you don't. And one way to account for that is you can move this full screen cover into this function right here, or into this part right here. So now this on appear will be called first, and we'll know before we get here, we'll know if the show sign in is true or false. let's test it by running the app. Succeeded. Oh, nothing showed, right? And let's close it and open it. No more popping up and going away. So that's lit, and our sign-in flow is done, right? Like we sign out, we get here. Well, we haven't done the Apple yet, but we'll do that later, because the Apple part is always a bit trickier. It's a little convoluted when you want to integrate it with Firebase, but it's not too crazy. But before we do that, let's go set up our database. We created this file, but we never used it. Database manager. We'll call this a final class, and let's call our auth final class as well. And let's make this a singleton. Static let shared equals database manager. All right, and what do we want to do? So back to our chat view model, or our chat. Where's our chat view? So this is our chat view, and currently we're not doing anything with our messages, right? We can't load them, we're not sending them, and we're not listening to them. Those are the three things that we need to do. So first, let's what should we do first? First, let's send them. So I'm gonna import Firebase Firestore, and I import Firebase Firestore Swift. That gives us some extra functionality, I believe. And let's say send message to database. All right, the message is all right. And this we'll probably have to add like a completion or async awaits. I'm gonna close this for now. Let's go to our chat view model. All right, so this is our message. Let's see, are we accounting if the text is greater than 2? And before we actually set up our database manager, let's go to our Firebase and set it up in there. So you go to Firestore database. You got to create a bucket and everything. We'll just start in production mode, hit next. Make sure you click location near you, enable. All right. And then we just go to usage, or no, rules, sorry. Just change this to true, publish. Now we go back in here, and let's create a reference to the database. I think it's called firestore.firestore. And we're gonna wanna create a reference to our collection, which will be our message collection. And in here we'll have all the collections, all the messages in just one collection. Oh wait, you can call database collection messages. And if you guys are new to Firebase, so a collection will be this. So let's say we have users, and within each user there'll be a document, and each document will have these fields. So like if a user, let's say user has a UID, which could be like a number like this. They have a name, they have a username, and you hit save, and it would be stored in here. You see, this is our users collection. This is a document. This is the data within the document. And this is similar to how our messages will be structured, because for our application, we're just gonna have a collection with messages, and then all the messages will live in there, and we don't account for the users or anything like that. Just keeping it simple. So message collection dot, let's add a document. All right, and I already see one thing that was missing, right? We need a message passed into this function. Otherwise, what are we sending, right? And let's see. And let's do the one with the completion. And I'm gonna stick with completions for this project because in our auth manager, we had a completion, and I would go with async await for the whole thing, but when we're working with the Apple sign-in, we're gonna use completions. And just to keep everything similar, we're going to completions all over the place. If you guys want, I could do some refactoring later on where we refactor everything async await. Let me know, just drop down some comments and I'll make some videos on that. All right, so this will have to have a completion as well. And with a completion, you want to do add escaping. And sometimes you want a result. Sometimes you could pass something else. But we're just going to pass a Boolean of true or false if it passes or if it fails. Now we have to create our data. All right, so let's go to our data. And what are we going to have? So we're going to have a text, and that'll be a message.text. We'll have user UID. That'll be message.user UID. We will need a created app, which will be a timestamp. Let's call message.created app. Oh, looks like we're missing our commas. And now for our created app, if we call timestamp and we use this one with date, we can pass in the message.created app. And what else do we have in our message? Photo URL. We'll pass that in with the message. So photo URL. Don't forget your comma. Put our data. This lets us know if there's an error. Guard let error equal nil. else return. And I believe there's no guardlet, it's just a guard. We return, and also we have a completion here, so in this case the completion would be false. And this is asking us to verify that this will be from a string to any. So for our data, Swift is telling us we have to explicitly state that our data array here is of key values of was a key of strings and value of any, because these are strings but this type is date or a timestamp, so they're different. It requires any to be explicitly stated. And if we get here, we can say completion true. So now we send a message, and now let's fetch messages. This will return an array. Actually, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to create a message reference. Since we're going to use this message reference a lot, we can just create that here. So we'll say cut this, put it in here. We can just do that. Now we'll say message reference fetch or get. Yeah, it's get. This is a snapshot, and this is an error. Regardless, snapshot equals snapshot, and error equals nil, else you want to return. And this is a completion, since this will be asynchronous. And we're gonna do a very similar or the same completion we did before right here. And this time though, instead of true or false, since for this one you didn't have to return anything, right? Because we were just sending the message. Here we want to fetch the message, so let's actually return an array of messages. And this might be when the result type is useful, because let's do the result type here. Keep this stuff clean, and we can say error, or we'll create an enum, call this Firestore database error. Make sure it conforms to error, and then we want to say case fetch. Actually, since we're just using this for this specific case, we'll say fetch messages error case snapshot error. And copy this, paste it here, and then you want to call it completion dot. This is a failure, and then dot again, and then snapshot error. Once we have our snapshot, we can grab documents from it. So let docs equal snapshot dot documents. And now we have an array of documents, and we can loop through these, and we're gonna append them to an array of messages. And then once we finish our for loop, we're gonna pass that array to the completion. To the completion. So for doc and docs, we wanna say let data equal doc dot data, let text equal data text. You want to cast this as a string. Let user UID equal data user UID. Cast it as a string. Let's copy this 2 more times. And one thing I would note is you could use decodable and encodable here, right? But a tricky part, or something that makes it complicated, is we have a date in our struct, but in our date in the database it's being saved as a timestamp. So that makes the decoding and encoding a little bit trickier, and that's why we're doing it this way. But I would definitely recommend, if you're building this for production, to use encoding and decoding, because otherwise every time you want to add something or change something in your struct, you're gonna have to like go through and adjust these lines, and this is not great for for a production level application. And now we can create a message from all these. But one thing I want to note is, let's just write this down, is these are going to be optional. So we can cast this error just so they're not optional. This we will cast it as a, oh, this one's not even a string, right? This is a timestamp. And if we don't get a timestamp, we'll just say it's now. Like if there's an error, grabbing the timestamp. And now we won't fail here when we're calling when we're adding these to the message. And here we can just call created at and then date value. And that gives us the date value, and messages.append message. Command B. Before we continue, I want to just add a few things. You can add some things when we're fetching our messages. Like one thing I want to add is order by created at, ascending or descending. We'll say descending, and let's limit this to 25. That way, if our chat room gets hectic, we're not fetching 1,000 messages because that will be, I mean, it'll add up over time. All right, so now we're fetching and sending messages. So let's try to implement some of these. So for this send message, we will call the database manager .share .send message. So we have to create a message, and this message will be, we need to grab the user's UID, and we can get the user from our auth manager .shared .get current user, and this will return a conditional user or an optional user, sorry. So we'll do an if let, we'll do a guard let, actually I prefer guard let. And we can cast this as a UID, I believe, because we can do .uid, yeah. Else we will return. And now we have user UID. The text is the text. For the photo URL, I believe we can grab it from, all right, looks like we need the user, so let's just cast this as a user, and then we do user.uid, and then user.photo URL. And this will be optional, by the way, because they might not have a photo. And also, actually what we can do is we can go over to our message, and let's just make the photo URL optional. And again, this is optional because Apple may or may not, Apple doesn't provide a photo URL. And even with their Google account, they might not have one, although actually I think they do. Because I think by default, Gmail gives you like just the first letter of the whatever name you have for that email. And the date will be right now, which we can call using just date, like this. And now we can pass this message, and we'll have a completion, success. So if success, and I spelled success wrong, else. So if success, we want to do self.messages is.append. Message, else. So it's not a success, we get an error, and let's throw. Actually, I just realized this function is going to need a completion handler because this is making an asynchronous call. So add escaping, do boolean, just similar setup we did for the database manager. True. We could pass success because success is completion, false. And now back in our, I believe, a chat view, in our send message function, so the text will be our text and then success. So in here, the messages should automatically update because the view already knows to grab the messages from our chat view model. But let's write the if else case. This will be a failure. Maybe we'll print error. All right, so we're sending messages. Let's try to load the messages. I believe our database should be empty, right? And what we can do here is on a init, in the initializer for our view model, we can call our database manager share.fetch messages. So it returns a result. What was the result of again? It was an array of messages or a fetch message error. So this is messages. I'm going to change it just so this is an error. So I'm going to say self.messages equal messages. Oh, and something I haven't been doing here is using weak self. Just realized. Let's add a weak self here. And that makes this optional, and that makes this one optional. Command B, and then we have the error. Or we can just print the error. And now in our chat view, instead of calling our mock data, let's call our, let's say this one. And since we put this call in the init, the network call to fetch our messages, that means that our messages will be fetched when we initialize this, and they should be available to us to lay them out here. And if it takes a second for the network request to complete, it should still update. And let's test that. I'm gonna run this, and let's open up Firebase because I have no idea if I have any messages in my Firebase. Go to console and Firebase. We do not have any, we don't even have a collection called messages. That might give us an error, so let's do next. Let's create a test. So this hello world, generic programming, right? Field, what is another field that we had? I believe we had created at the timestamp. Let's say it was created yesterday. Yesterday at 2. Shout out to whoever came to the live stream. We had a live stream yesterday. Sunday at 2. Maybe I'll do another one. Sorry, what's the fields? UID, oh. This shouldn't matter. Oh, and I think it's user UID. And then we have, photo URL. What we could do, we could go to Google. Not Google Flights, Google. So for you guys who didn't see, we just created a message. And with the 4 fields, and let's go to the app, and also, so this is the app right now. I believe I should be able to sign in with Google. And it's empty, which it should be empty, but we just created a message, so it should have one message in there. Let's try to send message. Let's try to send one. So, all right, let's move this here. I'm gonna try to send a message. Testing. Oh, I can't even spell testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And why is it on the other side? That's funny. Let's take a look. We haven't even set up this. Wait, have we? So this by default is just going to be JSON. Oh, but it looks like we never did. So to do this, we're going to do a guardlet current user equals auth manager share dot get current user. Else just return false, because we should be able to get a current user if there's messages being sent or received. And then we want to add a conditional. So if the current user dot UID equals user UID, return true, else return false. So now I'm going to run this, and will our messages load up? They're not loaded. Let's go to our chat view model. So this is on init, self.messages, our database manager. Let's check if we were able to send messages. Our messages sent successfully. Looks like we can't read them though. Oh, that's funny. In our database, this is why you got to switch to async await, right? In here, we never called our completion, so we're not returning this message array. It's hilarious. This is an argument. Oh, I need to call success and then pass the messages. So that's why it wasn't loading. Let's run this again. Haha! Now it looks nice. And there's 2 things we need to do here. We need to fix the image, right? Because it's just me talking to me. And that's because I still have the default image here. We need to fix that. And we also need to fix the sizing of this to make it smaller if it doesn't need that much space. And wait, can I run this on the simulator? I want to see how dot secondary looks. Oh no. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change the color to system gray. I think one thing I want to try to do is move this into the text, and let's see how that looks. So we go from this to this, which is good. But if I have like a very long message, I have a lot to say. That looks crazy, but it still works. So that's good. So let's do that for a message sent by the current user. And let's run this. And there's a few things, there's a few more things. Ah, look at that. So, something quick we can add a exclamation point here. That'll be not. And oh look, it doesn't look bad here. Maybe it's for small text size. Oh yeah. Alignment. Oh, maybe we have to do trailing. There we go. And let's a fake message. Let's copy this. Oh. Alright, yeah, this looks good. Let's run this now. Oh, and I forgot to fix this. I removed the exclamation point from the message is from current user. What happens when we send one? I wonder if it's gonna append it to the front or to the top, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but this is being ordered in the reverse. Like this was the first message created, the second and the third. So where will this go? Hit send. Oh, it went on the bottom. Which makes sense since we're appending it to the array. And the way to fix this is, instead of sending messages, we can send messages.reverse. And if we run this, we should have all the messages in here. All right. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to go to our message view, and we need to figure out how we want to handle the images. My favorite, the best way I feel is like to just do. You could use like a library called SD-WebImage, because it makes it very easily and simple. You don't have to worry about caching and saving the image. It handles that for you. Because otherwise, if you use like async image or any other, if you use async image, my experience with using that in Firebase is you'll easily use up your bandwidth if you have a lot of pictures in your application. So let's import SD-WebImage. We're gonna go to packages. I believe it's in my recently used. If you guys don't have SD-WebImage, just Google SD-WebImage. And we actually have to Google SD-WebImage SwiftUI. Click on the first one that pops up. It should say SD-WebImage SwiftUI. The link will be in the description. And you just paste that bad boy here. Hit add package. You can close this. Add package. I'm gonna add another helper function. And we're gonna call this, let's say fetch photo URL. And we'll have this return a URL. And we'll make this throw. And what we'll say is, we'll guardlet the message, or regardlet that photo URL equal photo URL. Else we throw, and then we need to add what we throw in a second. I'll do that in a second. Then let's create a URL. So, and with SD-WebImage, you can have an optional URL. So we can just say return URL string photo URL. And if you needed the URL to not be optional, then you just add another guardlet, or you could do it in here, right? Like you could add 2 guardlets. And let's create an enum message error case enable or no photo URL. Message error, no photo URL. Oh, and this has to conform to error. Command B. All right, so we don't want to do throws here because SwiftUI actually, they don't allow you to do catch blocks in your views, and they don't recommend it. So we're not going to use the throws. So what can we use? Let's return a tuple with a boolean, or actually, let's just return nil, and we can just put this in here. We'll say this is the string. Let URL equal URL from photo URL string, and this will be non-optional, and then we return URL. Command B. And now if we go back to our message view, so we're working with, let's change it to this one, so we could do this one first. So I'll put an exclamation point to switch the sides, and let me get out the way, make this nicer. All right. And we can add a conditional statement here. If message dot fetch photo URL, if this does not equal nil, Then, well, actually what we could do is we could do if let photo URL equals message.photo URL. We can we want to use the SD web image in this case. So we imported SD web image here. SD web image, and we want to call the web image, and then you pass in the URL, photo URL, and we can just, oh, this is message.fetch photo URL. There we go. Else we'll have this, and wait, I'm curious if I put this here, if it would be applied to everything in here. We'll see in a second. What if I embed this stuff in a Z stack? Ah, yeah. I'm just seeing if I could, cause I'm not a fan of copying it twice, but it looks like that's our only option here. All right, and we want to cut it and paste that in here. Now we run this, and I wanted to change the default image, if there isn't somebody, to person dot circle dot fill. Oh, and we need to put system name, otherwise it's going to look in our assets. And that looks good, although let's add like a foreground color. You can do this to the back. Foreground color of like gray. Yeah, that's good. And we can copy this and paste it in here. Yeah. And we can test if it's similar output if we just get rid of this exclamation point. Boom. And now we can run our app. And now I'm in the way again. And boom. And this is showing up because this is the Google. So actually there might be an image, but because it's like the Google image that I grabbed earlier, but I believe it was like a transparent background and it was white, so it's not a good indicator of whether it's it's working or not. Let's change the dark mode. Yeah, like we switched to dark mode and you can see the Google stuff. And now if I send a message, it gets appended to the back, and we go to our database, and it should show up here. Cool. Alright, so our project is pretty much set. Let's sign out. Sign back in. Jason. Boom. Sign-in flow is good. The only thing missing now is the Apple. We haven't set up our Apple. Our good old Apple sign-in flow. We need to set up our sign-in with Apple. Because here we're just printing Apple when we click on this button. So let's go to the Firebase documentation and see what we need to set this up. So to do sign in with Apple, you actually need to be a part of the Apple developer program. So if you're not, then you can't implement this. So sorry, you have to go fight Apple, or you got to pay the $100 a year, I think. Yeah, to get set up. And the first thing we have to do is enable sign in with Apple in our application. You don't have to follow these steps because we can just go here to the target and go to sign in capabilities. Hey, capability. Type in sign in with Apple, and that gets it set up. We no longer have to do this, what they say in the documentation. That was the old way. Associate your website. We don't need to do that. Oh, this is for web. So we don't have to do that. And if we go down, we have to enable Apple as a sign-in on our Firebase. So let's go to Firebase console. Go to console, you open up your Firebase project, authentication, sign-in methods. We already enabled Apple, but if you haven't, make sure you enabled it. Comply with Apple's anonymized. It's just some data requirements if you guys are using it in a production application. Sign in with Apple, authenticate with Firebase. All right, these are the functions we're gonna need. So we're gonna have to implement this. So let's see, where should we do this? So in our auth, we have this sign in with Google function. In our view, so it looks like we should use our auth manager. Typically, I'd recommend you have a sign-in view model that then points to the auth manager. But since this is a very simple project, we're not doing that. But I would recommend that. Otherwise, you see our auth is about to get super huge because we have the sign-in with Google. And now we need to implement the sign-in with Apple. Function sign-in with Apple. And let's just copy this tag because it should be fairly similar. Oh, this will be call this an Apple sign-in error, and we don't know any cases yet, so I'll just leave this one, paste this here. All right, let's go back to the documentation. This is a function we're gonna need, and we're just gonna jam this into our auth manager. We'll create an extension of the auth manager here at the bottom. Let's create a mark. Sign in with Apple helpers. So this is one, and we also have this one. Our project is above iOS 13, so we don't need to worry about that. And then what else do we need? We have to import CryptoKit. And again, this is why you might want to do some of this stuff in like a view model, because you're gonna have a lot of stuff going on in your auth manager. So we need to import CryptoKit. And then what else do we need? This function, start Apple sign-in flow. Let's call this over here. Let's make this one private, so nobody else can call it outside of this file. We get an error for current nonce because we don't have it. So we need to declare this at the top of our auth manager up here. Let's say or nonce. Okay, and now we have these. Let's go back. We probably have some errors still, right? And see, now we have to import authentication services, and we have to conform to the delegate. And you can see that our auth manager is becoming huge, and now is responsible for multiple things. You cannot assign the type auth manager. So we have to conform to as auth controller delegate. This command V. I'm gonna move this sign in with Apple Flow into the top of our auth manager right here in this sign in with Apple function. We need a reference to the top view controller like we did for the Google. So let's create that first. Or we'll create that. We create that right here. So top VC equals get top view controller. Completion is well, we can use this one. Copy this error, and it should show up now. Command B. We get this error when we set the top VC to the presentation context provider, and we need to create another extension. And we're gonna have to clean up this file. So we're gonna create another extension of UI view controller, and in this extension, we want to make UI view controller conform to AS context. What was it? No, AS authorization. Authorization, controller, presentation, context providing. Hit Command B and you'll get a protocol that you need to add. And here we can return self.view.window, and you can hit Command B. Now we have some other issues. So our auth manager needs to inherit from NSObject in order to conform to this protocol right here. So we go here, and we have that. And now we need to bring in the stubs for this protocol. And you guys notice that the error went away with the top VC once we added the extension. And we can fix this. And for this, you can just return an AS presentation anchor the frame of 0. Since it won't be using this, it'll be referencing this one. We need to implement a function called didComplete with authorization, and we could also say didComplete with error. And actually, if you go to the documentation, it says it right here. It gives you them right here. So we can actually let's just copy these functions and paste it in here. All right. So now we need a way to know if we actually get here and this is completed or not. So one thing we could do so that this completion is accessible in this function where we need to know if we succeeded or not is we could create a global completion handler in this file, and it'll be of this completion, and I believe we need to add a parentheses. Yeah, it was missing a parentheses. And this is optional, and we can set it equal to nil at first. And then here, just like, because if you look here, we have this current nonce that's accessible to everything, or to all the functions in the file. And now we're doing something similar with the completion handler, because the current nonce is set here. So we'll do something similar where we set the completion handler equal to the completion here. Now if we scroll down, we'll see that they're guard-letting the current nonce here. And we could do the same with the completion handler. And let's wrap this in the same guardlet. Let's highlight this. Hit Control I, fix the formatting. And in here, you can call the completion handler failure. This would be Apple ID token error. Case Apple ID token error. Command B. When we have this Firebase credential, we can auth sign in with credential. I believe it's if let. Let's just do a guardlet. Guardlet auth result equal auth result error equal nil. Yeah. So if it doesn't equal nil, then we can say completion handler failure auth sign in error, and we can return. All right. Now what do we want to do if on a success? Let's go refer back to our Google. What do we do? So in our Google, we can take the result and convert it into a user. So let's copy this, paste it in here, and chat room user, Command B, pass it in here. Maybe we could just keep it as user. Command B, let's see what errors we have. Oh, this is called auth result. Auth result, Command B, and this is completion handler. Success. So should we try to test this? Let's do it. And on my simulator, I don't have an Apple ID account. Before I try to run it on the device, so let's see if this sign-in flow happens. Oh, I don't think we called sign-in with Apple. We got to go back to our view. It is our sign-in view, and we need to call it in here. Auth manager dot shared dot sign in with Apple completion. This is a result, and we could have a similar situation here. Let's see, let's run this. Now when I click on it, it should at least pop up like the Apple thing. Yup. And then if I go to settings, oh, I need to enable it and configure it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test it on my device. All right, my camera died, but I'm gonna keep going. So I hit sign in with Apple. It gives me the option to share my email or to not share my email. Let's see, let's go with, so I'm gonna go with hide my email, and I hit continue, Face ID, success. Hey there, haha, and it sends it, and it looks like we need to fix our UI. And I also want to refactor this sign in, this auth manager, because this is a mess, to be honest. So we're gonna refactor the auth manager and handle some UI stuff. But first, I need to get my camera back or charge it. Now might be a good time to take a break, because this signing with Apple stuff is pretty crazy and tedious, and then come back to this with a fresh mind. Let's clean up our auth manager. Let's create a new group. Call the new group auth. Put our auth manager in there and create a new file in it. It's gonna be a Swift file, and we'll call this Apple sign in, or we'll say sign in Apple. Let's do Apple, sign in Apple, and we want to make this a class sign in Apple. And one thing we'll do right off the back is, remember, we have to conform the NS object for the AS presenting something, right? If you guys remember. So let's do the helpers first. So it's this. So we're moving the helper functions first, and now we need to import CryptoKit, and I believe that means we can remove it from here. Start Google sign in flow. We'll keep this here. Actually, we can, how do we want to refactor this? So we can cut this whole thing out and go to sign in with Apple. Change auth manager to sign in Apple. Hit Command B. I'm going to copy this function, and I'm going to create the function start Apple sign in flow that was in Firebase, if you guys remember. I'm going to paste all that stuff in here. You gotta import authentication services. So we have access to the AS authorization controller delegate. Let's copy this, paste it in here. Command B. And for start signing with Apple Flow, we're gonna have to create a completion. And I think we can change our completion handler in this file because we're not gonna use this in here. And this requires Firebase auth. So what we can do is we can pass this ID token, the nonce, and the ID or the Apple ID credential full name instead of a credential. So let's create a struct, call this sign in Apple result, and we'll have 3 strings. Let me copy these. Then go to the top, and where should we do this, inside or outside? Let's do this outside. Struct sign in Apple result. So we get an ID token, and I just copied this here so I have a reference and I don't have to scroll down. So we have an ID token, it's a type string, nonce, which is a type string, and a full name. Let nonce, this is a type string, and I'll fix the formatting right now. And the last one is let full name of type string as well. We can get rid of this stuff. This was just for reference, and now we can create the Apple result, sign in Apple result. The ID token will be ID token string. The nonce will be nonce. The full name will be Apple credential ID dot full name. And this looks like it's not a string. Let's see. Go to looks like it's a person name components optional. Let's see if we can change our struct to that. Person name components optional. Command B. And alright, so this is good. And I'm gonna cut this and move this into the auth manager just for a second. So we can really delete this. Paste this in here for now. We're gonna come back to it. Now we go back to our sign in with Apple, and we have the completion handler here, and I think we need to make changes to our completion handler, right? Now instead of returning a chat room user, let's return a sign in Apple result. And this, we need to change the sign in Apple result. And I'm gonna change this error name. We'll do that in a second because I don't like this one says Apple sign in error, and then everything else says sign in Apple, so we're gonna change. But if we go to our completion handler now, we should do completion handler, success, and we should pass in our Apple result. Command B, it's failing in our auth manager. We have some stuff to do in there. Start sign in with, there we go, with Apple Flow. This is looking good. Let's go to our auth manager, handle these errors. So in here, we can call our let sign in Apple. So we go sign in Apple, and we can say sign in with Apple, and then we can call start sign in flow. And let's just declare this at the top, and we can move this stuff out of here. No longer using this. So this gives us a result. We can switch on the result, and this is an Apple result. And in the case of our Apple result, say error. In this case, we can call our completion dot failure. I believe we can call error. And now we can cut this and put this in our success. And we just have to change the ID token to this dot nonce, and this will be Apple result dot full name. Command B. This now changes to completion. Command B again. We need a reference to self, so let's do weak self in here, and I like to do a guardlet for strong self. Equal self, else we return strong self dot auth, command B, and it succeeded. Yay! Now let's run this on device and see how much stuff did we break. And you guys can run this on your device as well. All right, so it loaded up. I'm gonna hit sign in with Apple. It shows up if I want to sign in. I hit continue, and my camera's broken, so give me a second. I have to do tricks. There we go. Haha! It's working. So we're lit. And you guys see we refactored it all into this file here. And now our auth manager is a lot cleaner. And I believe we can remove this dependency. Hit Command B. Oh, we can move this into our sign in with Apple function or class and file. Hit Command B, and the auth manager looks clean now. You could even do a little bit more refactoring with the Google side, but the Google function is not that bad. Like, it's not as crazy as all the Apple stuff that we needed. And we can let's refactor this into its own file. We can recreate a file. Call this new group extensions. I need to help spell an extension. New file. This was UI application extension. All right. And this is just a way to structure your extensions that you have in your project. You could have one file with all the extensions, but that can get very big and you could have issues with that. So separating the extensions in different files is helpful. Now let's go back to our UI and figure out why on our phone it looks a little weird. One thing I noticed is if we change our max frame here to infinity, it'll push us all the way to the border, and then if we just add some padding of leading, oh, that looks like that solves our issues. Let's change this to infinity. And to test this, we have to do an exclamation point, remember? And then add some padding, dot trailing. Boom. So that looks good to go. Now, one thing I want to work on, let's make sure we return this to normal. So we can uncomment this out, and we can remove this. Oh, and one thing you guys, I don't know if you guys know, is you could have two views here. It'll just break it down like this. Just something to note. All right, let's go to our chat view. And I want to play around with this spacing here. I want to add some padding here for this button, right? Because it's like some padding. So let's embed it in a Z stack actually. And in this Z stack, let's add padding.top. See what that does. Haha, I like it. And let's add a shadow, radius 2. Ooh, that looks nice. And since our button is mint, let's make our message view color dot mint, system mint. I believe we can get rid of this mint. And if we go back to our chat view, we're not gonna see it. But if we do this, let's see how this looks. Looks good. All right, so our app is looking nice. I like the send button. It looks so clickable. All right. How does this look in dark mode, by the way? Let's test that. Ooh. Huh. This text color, foreground color dot. I think if it's, let's see. I think if we use a UI color dot system gray, let's go with system gray 6. Or we might actually, let's just do label. Never, so let's do system background. I kind of like that. I feel like it's easier on the eyes when it matches the background. Yeah. Should we do the same for the send button? Might as well, right? Keep it similar. So in our content view, we gotta go to chat view, send button, foreground color is gonna be color, UI color. And we do system background. Boom, send. And all right, now the only thing that's missing is we gotta figure out why is there no image here. So do we have Firebase open? Yes, we do. So I'm gonna stop this, go to Firebase, go to our database. Photo URL is null. That's what happened. Actually, so what we could do is Command B. Oh, so us downcasting this as error is why we were having that issue, because we want it to be optional. So actually, if I just remove this, I don't even need this anymore. Now if we run our application, boom, and this has no, this does have an image. And it looks good. I like it. Now let's just go to the sign-in screen really quickly and make it look nice. I believe this is the sign-in view, right? Yep. Can we add a text? So it's a VStack spacer, C, text, welcome, please sign in, dot, font, dot, we'll say large title. Let's minimize this. Let's add, yeah, welcome, please sign in. Let's remove the spacer. What does that do? Oh, I actually like it like that. All right. And let's see if I can do a frame max width of like 350, 300. Oh, so I did the frame. We did max width of 300. Large title, and then we centered the text. It's looking good. Now I'm trying to see if I can add a shadow to this. I believe if I put this in a Z stack, and we do dot shadow, radius of 3. How does this look? 1 shadow anywhere? No? No shadow? Come on, shadow. Let's switch to dark mode. No. Wait, let's do shadow with a color, red, and then 1. Oh, it is there. I just can't see it. Sometimes the color is... I think it defaults to a single color, either white or black. I believe, I don't know which one it is. But if we want, we could do dot label, and that'll give us the opposite of whatever view we have, right? Like if we are in dark mode. Ooh, a little white shadow. I like it. I like it like that. And so we can just do that with this one as well. Ooh, that look nice. Where'd you get that? Should we add a shadow to the image? So we were almost done, right? One interesting bug in our project is, so you see this, the formatting is correct here, right? But if you launch the app, like a fresh app, and then you sign in, it's gonna push everything to the left. We have an issue, right? Because we're fetching our messages, and when we fetch them, there isn't anybody signed in, so all of them are assumed to be on the left side, like being sent from somebody else, as we can see right here, because in the background our home view or our chat view already appeared, so it already made the network request and already loaded the messages, but it's not being reflected here when we log in. So one thing we can do is we create a if show sign in else, and if we want to show the sign in, we'll have a sign in view, just call that. Gets rid of the need for this. So now we need to account for when this loads. How are we going to know if the user signed in or not? And what we can do is we can go here and create an initializer, init show sign in. We should set this equal to true by default, and we can do this. So we'll set, and this will happen on initialization of this view, so we'll have access to it when we get here. And we should be able to just cut this and paste it in here. And we just did a lot of movement, right? So who knows if this is gonna work. Well, now we need a sign in or a true or false for our preview. Actually, to circumvent the requirement, we can set this equal to true, and we can just remove that since we already set an equal to true in the initializer. And now it should run smoothly, and now I'm running it on my simulator. So let's sign out. We show the sign in screen. If we sign in, let's close this and let's sign in. Boom. Hey, and we get the messages load up. If we sign out and we sign back in, this is a lot nicer flow, and our messages are showing up on the right sides. All right, so we were almost done, but then I realized we're not listening to changes in our database. Like if somebody else sends a message in our chat room and we have our app open, we're not gonna know because we aren't listening to changes. All right, so here's an example. Let's sign in. We sign into this account, and I just sent a message from a different account on my phone, and they're not being listened to. For example, if I sign out and sign back in, boom, these are the messages I just sent. These are the messages I just sent, and we're not listening to them, so let's do that. So let's get rid of these spaces, and let's create a function here. Listen for new messages in database. And in here, I believe we have a message reference. So we can reference the message reference, and we can actually copy this so we can have this the same. The only thing we change is right here we had add snapshot listener, and this will return us a snapshot and an error. And we can do something, we can just do what we did here, right? We can just guardlet the snapshot error equals error. And in that case, let's create a function out of this. Where does this function end? This function ends here. So let's create a function. Create messages from, let's call this Firebase snapshot. So this will take in a snapshot. It's either one of the, I think it's metadata. And we'll have this return an array of messages. Since we were using this twice, we might as well break it out into its own function. And I'm not sure which one it is, so let's close this. And let's add snapshot listener. Add to query snapshot. And then we do snapshot error. Paste this back here. Let's hit Command B. Error here. And one thing we're going to need is a strong self equal to self, because we're going to need a weak self, and we're going to have to add this to the function above as well, because we're going to have to call this function we have down below. So let messages equal strong self. Oh, we have to use the let. We might as well move this back here. Strong self dot create. Pass in a snapshot, Command B. Cannot find strong. Oh, there we go. That's how we were having the issue. And then, oh, one thing we have to make sure we do is we return the messages array in here. Hit Command B again. This looks good. And we can do something similar in here. We just have to add the weak self. And we can add this to the guardlet. Hit Command B. Now there's two things we need to do. Whenever this snapshot listener is called and we get these new messages, and let's do something as well. Let's reverse them here so we don't have to worry about reversing them twice. And that way we can just pass the messages. Looks like I'm missing this. And in here, when we get the new messages, we're going to want to publish these changes, and we're going to use combine for that, so that any view can subscribe to the changes, to the messages, and they can display that in the UI. In our case, it's just going to be the chat view that's going to be using this. So import combine. We'll call this a messages publisher. This will be a pass-through subject. And we're going to be passing through a message array. And we can just say error. Hit Command B. We should be good to go. And all we do when we get new messages is we say, I believe we'll have to call strong self message publisher dot send messages. And we actually need to call this function, listen for new messages in our database. And let's call it in here. This fetch messages will be called on the initialization of our chat view model, I believe. Yeah. So that'll take care of us worrying about listening for changes. And now we just have to subscribe to these changes. We'll subscribe to them in our view model, because that's where we have our array of messages. So we're going to import combine. And let's create a var called subscribers. Set any cancelable empty array. And let's create a function in here. This one can be a private func. Subscribe to message publisher. And in here we'll call the database manager dot share dot message publisher. We'll say receive on. You want to receive on the main thread, so we're going to call dispatch queue dot main. And then we call sync. This one is a completion. We'll print out the completion. And these are the messages. We'll say self.messages equal messages. And we're in a completion, so let's put a weak self in here. The last thing you want to do is store this in our subscribers. And now we have to call this function, and let's call this after we call our fetch messages function in the initializer. So we'll automatically subscribe to messages or new messages in the initialization of this chat view model. Hit Command B, and our build is succeeding. Let's run the app. Let's see if we have any issues now. So I'm going to scroll down, and you see here we're logged in. Ah! Cool. Hey, it's updating. Let's say new message. Ah. Alright, let's add a little feature that scrolls down. So to actually reflect this in our UI, we have to do some changes. So the changes I want to make is when a new message is sent, we're listening to it, right? But we're not scrolling down to the bottom. And when we load up the application, we're also not scrolling down to the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to embed this in a scroll view reader. And this scroll view reader will give us a scroll view. And we'll be using that in a second. And then in here, we're going to want to say on change. And we're going to want to listen to changes in our chat view model.messages. And I believe this will give us an error and saying that our message has to conform to equatable. And all we have to do is go to our message, hit Command V, and that error goes away. So in our change, we're going to want to say scroll view dot scroll to this one. And there's still some changes we need to do. So we are going to have to wrap our messages array in an actual array. And then we're going to enumerate. This will give us access to an index here, an index and a message. And I believe we have to conform to identifiable. So we go back to our messages. Oh, we conform to identifiable. Oh, we need to call ID backslash. Let's use element. Command B. If you have an issue with element, use offset. And now it's telling us we have to conform to hashable. So we say hashable. Command B, we go back here. This error goes away. And now under this message view, we're going to say .id. And we're going to pass in the index. And what is this error we're saying now? Let's do the enumeration inside of this. Command B. See if this goes away. Change this to dot bottom, and this can be chat messages dot count -1, and we should be good to go. Let's run this, and we used on change, and that'll handle the case on appear, because when this view first appears, we're gonna initialize the chat view model, so our network request is gonna be made, and our messages are gonna update. So that's good. Now let's run this, and there's only one more thing we need to do. Whoa. Hit send, and the one more thing we need to do is, so we have these two here, right? And this is because we're listening to the updates, but we're also appending to the messages array. But if I send another one, watch. See? The two woes go away, and now we have two C's. So in our chat view model, in our send message, we can remove this. Now how does this look? Haha! Now we don't have two. And let me test. Let's test it live. Let's do it live. Haha, it's at the bottom, right? Let's see. I'm not gonna look at my phone now. Dope. Fire. I appreciate the people who made it this far. Y'all the real MVPs. Y'all the learners. Y'all gonna make it. Keep at it. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Check me out. Also, feel free to check out my courses. I have some UI kit courses if any of you guys are interested in that. I know we just did SwiftUI, but UI kit is also important to know, especially if you're going into the job market. So I recently dropped a course on that, so check it out. Oh, and stay tuned in. We got more coming. Let me know what you guys thought about this. Any tweaks, anything y'all would want to see or know. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.